Let us now consider second order systems. As we've seen before, a second order system with a mass, a spring, and a damper we can write down the governing equation as mx double dot plus bx dot plus kx equals f. And just like in the first order system, this can be broken down into two types of responses. One would be the free response, and another one would be the forced response. And the free response would correspond to the force output, the input force being 0, and then we could assume some type of forcing function. So how do we solve the free response, or get the solution for the free response? So mx double dot plus bx dot plus kx equals 0. We can do it in the same way as we did for the first order. Let's assume that x equals a e to the lambda t, and substitute back that into the equation of the homogeneous equation. So we get m lambda squared a e to the lambda t plus b lambda a e to the lambda t plus k a e to the lambda t equals 0. So we end up getting m lambda squared plus b lambda plus k times a e to the lambda t equals 0. Again, this bit is 0, so what we are left is with this characteristic equation. As we had mentioned earlier, that's quite an important equation. So m lambda squared plus b lambda plus k equals 0. And I'm going to rewrite this in a slightly different way that's a little bit more commonly used in mechanical vibrations and systems that use this equation. I'm going to write this as lambda squared plus 2 zeta omega n lambda plus omega n squared, where omega n is square root of k by m, and zeta is b over 2 square root of m times k. So if we made these two substitutions into this equation, you would end up getting that, and that equals 0. And we can use our friendly quadratic formula to figure out what lambda is, since this is a simple quadratic equation. So lambda equals minus zeta omega n plus minus square root of lambda squared minus 1 times omega n. So in this case, we get another set of time constants. Since the second order system, we have two time constants, and there are multiple ways these time constants, depending on how the damping is, we can get a different type. We can get either real or complex time constants as well. So let's take a quick look at the three cases that we end up getting when we consider this equation. So the first case is when zeta is greater than 1. This is what we like to call the overdamped case. And if zeta is greater than 1, this equation, lambda, both the roots of the quadratic are real. So when both the roots are real, so for the overdamped case, we have x equals a e to the minus zeta omega n plus square root of zeta squared omega n times t plus b e to the minus zeta omega n minus square root of zeta squared minus 1 times t. And if we try to graph that, it will just simply look something like this, where we have two decaying exponentials that go down to 0 after some time. The second part is zeta equal to 1. And in this case, we only have lambda equals minus zeta omega n. But these are repeated roots. There's two roots both having the same value. And the solution would look like a plus b times t e to the minus zeta omega n t. And you can look up your differential equations book to see why this is there. It's because we have repeated roots. And the graph of that will look very similar to the one we had before, so I won't draw it again. But this is also called the critically damped case. So we can also have a third case where zeta is less than 1. If zeta is less than 1, this equation will have complex roots. And so we'll have lambda as two complex numbers. So lambda would be minus zeta omega n plus or minus omega n I square root of 1 minus zeta squared. And so our response x would be a e to the minus zeta omega n plus omega n I square root of 1 minus zeta squared plus b e to the minus zeta omega n minus I omega n square root of 1 minus zeta squared. And we can use some complex trigonometry here as well as Euler's relationship to write down an expression for x that doesn't have any complex numbers. And that would be c, which is another constant, e to the minus zeta omega n times t multiplied by d, which is another constant, cosine omega d t plus e sine omega d t, where omega d is nothing but the natural frequency times 1 minus zeta squared. So this is the complex case. This is called an underdamped system. And we'll look at its graph in a lot more detail in a second. But this system again has oscillations as well as an exponential part. So you can imagine that if you put the right kind of force in this mass, it could oscillate back and forth. And it turns out that if the damping is low or if you have very low damping, it would oscillate under if zeta is less than 1. And this is a very common thing that we see in engineering systems all the time. And we'll take a closer look at that right now. So the second order equation is x double dot plus 2 zeta omega n x dot plus omega n squared equals f. And we have written expressions for zeta and omega n before. And for the underdamped case, where zeta is less than 1, we have x equals c e to the minus zeta omega n t, d e to the minus, d cosine omega dt plus e sine omega dt. This is for the free case, the free response. To get the forced response, it's almost exactly the same as what we did before, where we assume In the case where the force is just a simple constant, where F equals F0, and we'll assume that the position is also a constant G. So what we end up getting, what we end up getting is that omega n squared times G equals F0. So G equals F0 over omega n squared. So the final solution would just be the homogeneous solution, this part plus this offset, which is F0 over omega n squared. So X equals this whole XH plus F0 over omega n squared. This has two components. One is the offset, and one is this exponential and the sinusoidal term. The C, D, and E can be got from the initial conditions of the, you can say that the initial velocity and the initial position are both 0. We can graph this expression where the final value is F0 over omega n squared. And it will look something like that. This is a very characteristic curve that you will see quite a bit in control engineering, and it's called a step response. So what happens to the mass, spring, and damper when we have a step input and force? The transit, initially it will oscillate about some force, but it will settle down to the final value. There are various properties of this curve, and the equations are displayed right here. Equations of the peak time, T peak, the time it takes for the first peak, the overshoot or the percent overshoot, how much over the final value the curve would rise up to. You should also notice that the initial values are both 0. So the position and the velocity are both 0 in this case. There's also the rise time that you could, that also is like how long would it take for it to reach the final value initially, how fast it rises, as well as the settling time or the 2% settling time, which would be how long it would take for this curve to reach 2% of its final value. So all these things are interesting or to know, and especially the formulas which are written right here, to understand this curve and to design around it. So many times we want to be designing engineering systems that have a certain peak time, certain overshoot, certain settling time, and we want to know how those parameters will relate to various parameters of the system, such as the spring, mass, and damper, and then how can we tweak it so that to get the desired response. The techniques that we used here were simple techniques that helps us get the solutions of first and second order equations very easily. But sometimes we have to deal with more complicated systems and in many cases more complicated inputs for force. Here we've used just simple step inputs for force, where the force goes from 0 to some value. But we could envision having a ramp inputs for force, where the force slowly rises in time. We could also have sinusoidal or oscillatory inputs. We could have many different types of inputs. In addition, we could have also higher order systems, so first, second, third, fourth, higher order systems, but this technique would be quite cumbersome and too tedious to do. In those cases, we tend to use, control engineers tend to use Laplace transforms to understand those equations. And in the next series of lectures, we will talk about Laplace transforms and how they can be applied to understand first, second, and higher order systems, as well as to understand how these systems behave under different types of inputs. Thank you.